Mistress Witch on Twitch. I've been an animator for 2 years.
What is the most complicated part of animating overall? For me, staying focused on an animation for hours is so hard. But I guess that's any art though. That's not like specific to animation. I have a hard time staying focused. Now, when I am finally focused, I can stay focused for a good amount of time without distractions and maybe with a little energy drink. But typically I have a hard time. Now, when I say for hours, I try to animate for 12 hours at a time. That's a lot. That's a lot. So understandably, it might be pretty hard to stay focused during that entire time. That's my whole day, right? But even staying focused 2 to 3 hours can be kind of tough. It really depends on what's going on around me, like distractions and stuff, or what's happening that day. But if we're gonna talk specifically about animation, backtracking is very complicated for me because I'm not very good when it comes to deleting stuff after I've already like gotten in like far with a art piece or an animation. So let's say I completely colored, I shaded, and I did everything for an animation minus maybe compositing, right? The last thing I had to do with compositing, I'm so ready, this animation's almost done. And then either a client asks for a major change, or even myself, I notice, hey, I completely forgot to include Spelly's other eye. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. I only gave her one eye, but she has two, and that's no bueno, right? So then I have to go back and I have to do all of that all over again. Now, with an eye specifically, that might be easier, but let's say I gave Spelly the entire wrong outfit, and I had to give her a different outfit, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to take forever, because I have to remove everything that I've done, and animate a whole new outfit on top of like all of that jazz. And it's like, so to me, backtracking is so complicated because I'm so stubborn. I'm like, I don't want to. I want to get it right, which is why work in progress, super duper important. Sending work in progresses, looking at work in progresses. Actually, this might go with another later question. I've noticed that some people don't really look too hard at the work in progress until it's already towards the end of like the animation, and then they want changes. And it's very difficult to change an animation. It's not necessarily like an illustration, although illustration changes also suck a lot. But with an animation, you have to do that change like 20 times on every single frame, and it can be tough. So as a client, if someone sends you a work in progress, please like look it over a little bit more than normal. Just make sure everything's there. Even make a checklist. That would help a lot. Making a checklist of the things that are typically forgotten when you commission someone, like freckles, like scars, like certain pieces of clothing and stuff. If people normally forget them, it's probably worth making some sort of list on a reference sheet or just in general, so you can give it to future artists and just say, hey, you might not forget this, but other people have, and I just want to point out that I do have freckles, I do have a scar over my head, stuff like that, right? That would help a lot too, to avoid things like this with the backtracking, because it can be kind of tough. But as a client, please check any work in progresses that, animators give you. And as an animator, please give work in progresses. I've heard so many horror stories where people just like suddenly have the end result, and it's like, but now if you have to make any changes, there's a lot of work on your end because you didn't give them any work in progress. So on both sides, please do send work in progresses and please look them over. What is the most complicated ask you've had from someone that you were happy with the result of, and the other spectrum, and another one you were least happy with the result of? The most complicated ask I've been asked for is probably a fight scene. I'll be honest, it's probably a fight scene. I actually really like how they turned out. They have not been composited yet. I'm still waiting on some stuff, but I really feel like they're going to turn out really well. Even just the animation alone, it came out so well that I'm like, I've never done a fight scene. It was a full body thing too. I've never done a fight scene before, and I don't know, I really like how it came out. It's not public yet though, so you guys will see it eventually. The most complicated thing that I'm least happy with, probably the walk cycle that I did kind of recently. I did like this whole full body walk cycle, and I like how it ultimately came out, but I feel like I could have done even better. Like, because it was my first ever walk cycle, because it was my first ever full body walk cycle, I have a good gut feeling that I could have done better, and I just was not happy with it. But out of all the complicated things that I was asked, even though it came out okay. You could definitely tell she's walking, you know. But I am still the least happy. I wish I could go back over. And theoretically, maybe I could one day. Maybe I could just do it for funsies one day. Neither of these are public though, so I can't show you them. But just imagine a cool fight scene that I'm happy with and a cool walking scene that I'm not quite so happy with. What could we, the clients, do that makes briefing easy to understand and helpful to make your work process less difficult? Now, I had mentioned one just earlier. I had mentioned making notes of things that typically people miss. So I like to put a mini bullet point down here. Oh gosh, a mini bullet point down here saying something like that, right? But here's a couple of the things that I find that makes the work process less difficult. Firstly, like we had mentioned earlier, having a clear idea in mind. I have had people come to me asking for an animation saying, I don't know what I want, I just want my character animated. And that's nice, but I can't really work with that because I don't know anything about your character. Like, I could try to work with you in DMs to get a clear idea in your mind, right? I can work with people to understand it, but I can't literally go and animate someone just to, you know, make them look good or something. Like, it doesn't work. Having a clear idea in mind helps a lot. So here's a couple examples of how to have a clear idea in mind. References. References are so important, especially for visuals. Not everyone is a visual person, a visual learner like me, but I am a huge visual person. You send me GIFs, especially GIFs because they're already animated. You send me, you know, vibes, even just like, I want the same vibe as this animation, just not exactly this animation. And it's like, okay, I can do that. Sending me like just images, reference images of everything, right? Your character, the backgrounds, you know, all this stuff. It helps so much. So getting like a whole list of references and, you know, visuals for those references, it helps a lot. Detailed ideas and mood board. Now, if you don't really have any visual references, the next best thing is to have some sort of detailed idea. And I have gotten like, there was this one that I had gotten that was like, what, 12, 13 pages? And it was so amazingly detailed that I understood the assignment immediately. It was like, here's how long I want this scene to be. Here's like the scene and the cut numbers, the number of cuts. Here's what happens in the scene. This is what they're feeling in the scene. Like they had everything down on point. And I was like, this is probably the most detailed I've ever gotten for like a commission request. I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. There's so much. A storyboard does help out a lot. You do not need necessarily a storyboard. Not with me anyway, because I do know how to storyboard, although I'm still learning as well. But having a storyboard, especially like an animatic, I've had one person come at me with an animatic before, and that again paints the picture that you want for your animation so clear in my mind that it makes the animation process just that much smoother, right? Having that storyboard helps. Now, some people may charge you for a storyboard, something to keep in mind. I probably should. So 2025, prices might change a little bit, but currently I do not charge for a storyboard, which means people get storyboards from me for free. I'm gonna change that pretty soon. But the point is, people may charge for a storyboard if you do not have one or you do not make one. Storyboards do not have to be super overly detailed either, at least with the images. Like, the words on the storyboard are more important than the visuals if you're not an artist. If you are an artist, it would help a lot for the visuals, I'll be completely honest. But I know not everyone is that's going to be giving these, like, requesting animations, right? But the biggest thing I have to say, other than the clear idea in mind, right? The biggest thing that helps so much for making an animation is having your audio already. Is having any voice acting or narration already. Or at least in the process of working, and we can work it out, but I need it sooner than later, right? Having the music done already, especially if it's something that is going to be animated to music, because the BPM matters, that matters for pacing for the animation, that matters for when scene transitions happen, you know? Those things are important. Having the audio, having it all ready and laid out when you first commission someone for animation, it would help so much with the animation process. It just makes it so much more smoother, you know? Especially when it comes, again, to timing everything. Timing voices to the mouths and stuff. Timing all those cuts and all those beats for songs and stuff. Very important. The other thing you don't really need, but it helps, is sound effects when it comes to audio. But typically sound effects can and usually do come after the animation is done. So, like, if there's like a fight scene and there's like swords clashing and stuff, that type of audio can come after the fact. It helps, but it can come after the fact, right? It's all about the music, and especially any voice acting or narration stuff. That's what's important to have up front. What are your recommended study/practice resources for animators? I have a lot on here. Feel free to screenshot this if you really want to. They're all on YouTube. You can look them all up on YouTube and you can find them very easily. But my recommended practice study resources for animators is YouTube University, baby! It's been probably one of the most, if not the most, I've used in terms of any kind of study or practice. Here's some other channels on YouTube that I recommend checking out if you are interested in learning, especially anime style animation, but some of them are in general. Most of them actually are anime style because surprise, surprise, I do anime. So of course my references that I recommend are gonna be anime, but Dong Chang, Lee Cree, Roman R Productions, Sakuga Foundry, Naoki Saito. That's one specifically more so for art in general that I learned. So that could be anything from anatomy to coloring to a lot of just art in general. It's not so much animation specific, but he is so good at what he does. So very good teacher, I'd recommend. Spywee's Mind Palace, RTFX animation, especially if you're looking into doing effects like fire, water, wind, like battle animations, like stuff like that, like just effects in general, I'd recommend. Nika's channel, and the Animator Dormitory channel, which they do a really cool thing trying to essentially make this whole space a space that's really good for animators to live and make animations rather than just, you know, get paid $2 to make a whole anime. And also me! Coming soon to YouTube. I'll be doing some tutorials and other types of videos as well on YouTube. So if you want to check out our YouTube, please feel free to. Some other resources that I would recommend that are not on the board right now is the famous Animators book, the Survival Toolkit book. That's best for learning fundamentals, I believe, because it was so handy dandy, especially if you like reading. If you don't like reading, I'm sure they have it somewhere on YouTube, maybe, if you can find it. But if you do like reading, or you just want to learn fundamentals, highly recommend that book. And another thing I might recommend is just taking something that you really like a small GIF. Let's say you go on Discord and you type like anime waving and you just find like a really simple waving GIF. Trying to do or replicate a GIF like that does also help a bit. It's kind of like just trying to understand why people animate the way they do. Like, why did they decide to use smear frames for this thing? Why did they have the arm like this, you know, when waving, you know, just random stuff like this. Why did they color a certain way? Why are the shadows a certain way? You know, all that kind of stuff, right? That does help a lot too when studying and practicing. What specifically about animation process do you enjoy the most? The process in general I really like is cleanup and coloring. That's basically after all the sketching's done and all the roughs and everything are done, then you have to clean it up. It's kind of like lining. So you're just lining the animation. I really like that part of the animation, and I really like coloring. Um, Not a huge fan when it comes to the cleanup part where you have to do all the shading and stuff, unless it was detailed in the roughs and everything. If they already detailed where all the shading is, then that's fine as well. You just make some lines, you just bucket tool, baby, you know? I know it sounds super simple, but I guess that's kind of what I like a lot about the animation is making things move in the most simplest way, which is cleaning up after the roughs are done. I do, however, like sketching. I do like mapping motions and stuff, but it's not my most favorite. This is the one that I most enjoy, is coloring and the cleanup process. What would you call your animation style if you could name it? Generic anime style. I have to be completely honest with you guys. I have studied and practiced anime style specifically just so it can look like an anime. I don't particularly have my own style. Like, I don't mimic anyone else. I don't do, like, Persona style. I don't do Dragon Ball Z style, you know, which are other animes, but it's like taking all the anime and kind of molding it. If you want to put an extra word in here, maybe modern generic, or generic modern day anime style, because it's not, you know, like the 80s or 90s anime or anything. Which I have drawn in that style, but I don't think I've ever animated. Oh, I animated one time. I animated one time in that style, actually, for attempting to do, I think it was like a 90s animation. I think it was pretty cool. Pretty fun, if you ask me. But that is essentially generic anime, or again, generic modern day anime style is what I would say is my animation style. What is the ultimate goal for the current road you are on? Ultimate goal, ultimately, honestly, I just want to be able to work full-time as an animator while like sustainability. Sustainability would probably be my ultimate goal. Being able to sustain myself as an animator, as a freelance animator, so that, you know, I can live and I have enough money for groceries and for bills, and then for saving or health insurance. Like something in there is important, you know. I would like to have that. You know what I mean? But here's a couple smaller goals as well. On top of the ultimate goal, I would love to work with an animation studio and have my name in the credits of an anime episode. I think that'd be so cool. I'd love to work on an anime episode. Any in particular? Not particularly, honestly. Like, obviously, I've been obsessed with One Piece lately, so that would be really cool. But outside of that, anything to do with fantasy, like fantasy animes, magical animes, something like that would be really cool too. I would also really love to work with a VTuber studio. There's a lot of indie animation VTuber studios. Or I should even say indie animation studios without the word VTuber, because some of them work on VTuber stuff. Some of them work with anime, like animation studios. So I would love to work in one of those studios as well. That would be so cool. And then last but not least, for my smaller goals, do an animation collab. I tried to set up an animation collab. It kind of fell short because everyone was busy, myself very included. So it is very hard to schedule something like that, but I would love to do an animation collab. I did do one with Miffy. I did. But when I say an animation collab, I more so mean making an anime together, like an animation together, right? Doesn't necessarily have to be on stream, although it can be streamed, but just doing that as a group would be really cool. So those are a couple of my smaller goals. Ooh. What are some things you love that clients do right? Clear ideas up front. I know we've talked about that before. We talked about music and voices, having those already done. And having the storyboard would help a lot. So I do love when people have the storyboards up front, because again, I'm not much of a storyboarder. I can do it. I currently don't charge for it, and I'm probably going to charge for it going into 2025, now that I think about it. But honestly, generally and genuinely, it's really just, it's nice to have clients who are both kind to me and patient to me, And when they are, like, I don't want to guarantee anything for any future potential clients of mine, but I typically tend to give more than requested. So someone might request, can I have my character blinking? Okay, so what I actually wind up drawing is them blinking and then hair moving around a little bit in the wind, right? All they wanted was a blink. I gave them a little bit more at the discretion of the client, right? I make sure it's okay with them first. I don't just change it and I'm like, here you go. I know you didn't ask for this. But I typically give more than requested, especially if someone is just patient with me and nice to me, I have had clients, actually it'll go into the next question. I have had clients that are not so nice, but just saying, hey, if you're nice to artists and stuff, they might really like that. I don't know, just saying. Yes, that's a big thing, is that storyboards. Thank you, Harry. Hi, Harry. Storyboards are a thing that's like, it's someone's job. There are people who are just storyboard artists. They just make storyboards, and that's perfect. They get paid to just make storyboards. It is a separate job. There are so many separate jobs in animation. So many separate jobs in animation, which is why I mentioned earlier. If you find something you really like to do, keep doing that. If you find something you don't like to do, let's pretend you don't like doing storyboards. Don't keep doing storyboards. Save that for someone who genuinely likes to make storyboards, and you can genuinely do the things you like to do. If that's, I don't know, the keyframes or, in-betweening or whatever you like to do, process in animation. Plus, you avoid burnout a little bit more because you're not doing things you hate. Okay. Speaking of, what are some of the things clients do that drive you nuts? I have a couple of them. I have, for example, constantly asking for updates, but I'll be honest, I haven't had a lot of bad experiences. I'm very, very fortunate in the commission space in general, but I haven't had a lot of bad experiences. But of the ones that I have had that were, I was like, oh my gosh, constantly asking for updates. Now, I have it in my TOS that I will send an update every 2 weeks. It depends on the what I'm doing. Normally, I send updates earlier than that. There have been times I've sent updates later than that. And after 2 weeks passes, even if it's in between like a week to 2 weeks, like a week and a half or something, feel free to ask for an update. That's perfectly fine. That's on me for not supplying an update sooner, right? That's me. But if I supply an update and the very next day you ask for an update and I say, I don't have an update yet, and the very next day, like every single day, that I have had happen in the past, that those clients get blacklisted from my clientele. Like, they could not commission me again if they wanted to. I will supply updates, and I'm okay with people asking. This does not mean that you cannot ask for updates. I'm okay with people asking if it's reasonable. If it's like once a week, maybe once every other week, right? That's fine, honestly. But I do have it in my TOS personally that I will supply updates every 2 weeks unless stated otherwise. So, for example, there's a project I haven't supplied an update for in like a month because we're currently waiting on someone else rather than, my section of things. So there's no reason for me to update saying, hey, haven't worked on it because I'm still waiting on the other person. I feel like that'd be rude. So that, But that is something that drives me up the wall, is people just asking for updates too much. It's okay to ask, just don't ask every single day. And especially read someone's TOS if they have anything about it in there. What are your most and least favorite things to animate? This one's tough because I had to really think. I went through a couple of my old animations, and honestly, my most favorite has got to be, again, I had mentioned chibis and mascots. So like the dog that I drew, I did a dog, I did like a little squid thing. I did Bipsy with the turnaround and the bunny. I did a recent one, actually. What did I recently do? Oh, I did a couple recent ones, but they're not public yet. They're very fun. Chibis and mascots are very fun to animate. I also love little close-ups. Maybe it's because it's less animation, although it's a lot more detail, so maybe it's not less animation, it's just, but like close-up of eyes, close-up of hands, of feet. I like to animate like that kind of stuff too. Those are a lot of fun. My least favorite, however, are geometric shapes, like machinery. Sorry to any robots or, you know, truck VTubers out there, you know, people who are just straight up truck-kun. Sorry, truck-kun. Like, I do not like drawing cars in general. I definitely don't like animating them. Mechas, you know, mechs. I'm not super good when it comes to muscles as well. Those aren't really geometric, but they're a little more geometric than, you know, the curvy body, you know what I mean? So, like, those are the things that I'm pretty bad at animating. And honestly, full body is my least favorite, but that's me. That's a skill issue on my end. I just need to learn drawing full bodies more. That's something that, like, I had mentioned, don't draw things you don't want to draw. This is something that I'm going to have to draw no matter what I do, right? So I just need to get better at drawing full bodies. That's my own skill issue, but I don't dislike drawing full bodies. Well, I guess it is my least favorite to do, but I'm learning. It's important to learn first, you know what I mean? But yeah, that's my own skill issue for full bodies, unfortunately. Ugh. See, look, there's Rim. Rim says he's bad at organic. And Harry loves organic. So if Harry were to draw geometric and Rim were to draw organic, but they hate it, they would burn out faster than not and they would not be happy. But if they switch, where Harry draws the organic and Rim draws the geometric, it would be like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. Which is why, once again, I recommend that you do not do the things you really don't like doing, because that will burn you out. I recommend trying it. If you've never tried it before, but I do not recommend continuing if you really don't like it, you know? What are some mistakes new animators make? Fun fact. I'll start with the fun fact at the bottom. Fun fact. I am still new to animation. I am still learning. We're all learning, right? So the first point, I would say copy, paste, and transform. I see this happen. I don't feel like I see it happen a lot, but when I'm looking up references, like I'm like, oh, I'm trying to find a walking reference so that I can use that as a reference, right? And then I'll see like someone who just took the legs and like copied it, pasted it, moved it a little, and then like transformed it a little, right? And it would be like it would be like there are some times where that's okay to do. It's especially okay to do when you're just sketching something out and you're just getting the idea down, right? Copy, paste, transform away, because why waste time to draw something again when the idea comes across during your sketch, right? That's fine. But when you're actually like cleanup, when you're doing your cleanup and you're lining everything, don't do the same copy, paste, transform, just draw it again. The whole point of copy, transfer, it's to save time, essentially. But if you do it for the end result as well, it's just gonna look wonky. It's gonna look wonky, unless you want it to look wonky. And there are other times you can probably get away with it. Like if someone's moving really fast, I would still personally recommend redrawing frames. But if someone's moving really fast and then they have like that moment where they're like they I forget what the exact word is, but they overshoot, essentially. Like they go to the position they need to go to, they overshoot, and then they come back, right? That might be okay with copy, paste, transforming. I would still recommend redrawing it, but you might be able to get away with it because that's typically just like a frame or so it's not really seen that much. But again, for the most part, generally, I would redraw things. Sketching, that's fine. Redraw it when it comes to the actual finished animation, like when you're cleaning up everything. Not using keyframes like me, like going into an animation. Let's say you want to do a running, I'll use, let's say a spinning animation. So someone's T-posing and they're spinning around. What I have found that I also do still is not make keyframes. So instead of doing the one T-posing from the front, the one from the side, maybe one from the back or whatever, maybe one like 3/4, and then doing all of the in-betweens, I typically go straight from here's the first frame, here's the in-between, here's the in-between, here's the second like keyframe. I just keep drawing like that for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe because it makes sense in my head, but I feel like it'd come out a lot easier if I just made the keyframes first. So highly recommend. I also need to learn it. Not like make keyframes. Make all your keyframes first, and then do all like the second keyframes, and then do in-betweening and stuff. Oops. We'll learn together. And a big one that I don't see newer animators make, or a mistake that I see newer animators make, is not using fundamentals. Like I said, fundamentals may not be the funnest thing to learn, especially when you're just first learning animation, but highly, highly recommend learning them. Because that's how you're going to learn how to like stretch and squash. That's how you're going to learn how to like the walk cycle and the run cycle and like all the, because those things are like, I feel like walking and running is some of the most things people will animate. I haven't done it that much myself personally, but I feel like that is something you'll be animating a lot if you work in the scene, and it's something you got to get down. So learning that is very easy. Gotta learn the rules to break the rules. Exactly. What's your favorite skill that you've developed over time, over your animation tenure? Okay, so time management. It's not fully developed. I still need a lot of work, but I love being organized and I love figuring out how I can best manage my time. I am still not the best at time management, but out of all the skills that I have learned, that I've developed in terms of with animation, time management is something that I can use for anything. Like with animation, you can, you learn skills like, again, the 12 fundamentals of animation. You learn that stuff. You learn, how to time everything. That's really cool. You learn how to do storyboards or how to do notations and stuff, what all the terminology means. Those are really cool. But time management is something that I feel you can take into your life, almost every aspect of your life, whether it's just planning out your day in general, whether it's planning for events, planning, parties, or in the VTuber scene, planning debuts, planning events. My brain. Time management is a skill that I feel like you can use in so many aspects of your life that it's one of my favorite skills that I have been since developing while I've been doing animation. You really need to get good at time management if you're doing animation and stuff. Again, I'm still developing it. I'm still not the best at it. I'm still learning, right? I still overestimate myself all the time. Like, yeah, this animation should only take a week or two to animate and it takes me a month. I still do that. I'm still learning. But this is probably my favorite skill that I have learned so far, that I've developed over my animation tenure. Have you had any experiences with odd requests from commissions? What's the weirdest thing you've animated or have been asked to animate? I think that answers that question. Next.